This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here with your latest Meteo Mundo forecast. In this forecast, we're going to talk about that disturbance behind me moving through the Caribbean and the impacts I expect, especially for portions of Central America and some Caribbean islands as well. Now, later in the day, I'll do another complete forecast video for the entire Caribbean and the Bahamas. So if you're looking for that specifically, look out for that a little bit later. But again, in this forecast video, we're going to talk about what's happening with this disturbance. So early on this Wednesday morning right now, I want you to notice we now have an orange area. It was red on Tuesday. The Hurricane Center has dropped slightly the chance of development with this disturbance from a 70 to a 60% chance. Is that good news? Well, it's not bad news, friends. But does it change my thinking as to what this is going to do and the impacts it's going to bring? No, it doesn't. I've never thought this was going to be a higher end windstorm, but the rain potential it could bring to portions of Central America certainly could elevate the flood risk in those areas beginning on Friday. So as we get into this, as I zoom in and we'll take a look at this, thank you so much, first of all, for clicking that like button. This time yesterday, we had over 1,000 likes in the video we did for Tuesday morning. I hope this early Wednesday morning video even surpasses that. And we're very close to 5,000 subscribers. Let's just blow past that like that in this video. Thank you very much for your support. So this is still Invest 97L. It's moving west at 13 miles an hour. Maximum sustained winds are 29. It, again, has a blow-up of storms just like it did on the wee hours of Tuesday morning. On these wee hours of Wednesday morning, the storms have flared up around the center of circulation. Looks fairly decent, but again, we do not have a closed circulation. We do not have a tropical depression. Still think there's a fairly high chance that we'll get that between now and Friday before this moves towards Central America. And again, that track is virtually due west, if not even south of west. Now, the big story, I believe, with this disturbance, which could become Tropical Depression 22 or even Tropical Storm Vince, is the rain. I've mentioned it the whole time, just the copious amounts of moisture, all of the moisture available, and we have had some significant rain through portions of Hispaniola and the ABC Islands and Jamaica on Tuesday. Those areas will continue with heavy rain, and all of that will be shifting off towards the west. Take a look at the water vapor imagery for you here. When I throw this on, you're going to see some incredible water vapor in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Look at all of this green. There's no dry air in the Caribbean. It's just moisture-laden atmosphere. Sea surface temperatures are very warm, so we actually should be very thankful if this doesn't develop into anything stronger. But I'm going to show you all the models. We'll take it step by step, and none of them are really trying to wrap this thing up into a big, strong wind maker, but the rainfall potential, especially for Central America, could be very, very significant. So let's get into the models for you right now. All right, so let me switch on over here to the GFS model, and we'll start off looking at the next 5 days like we have. And eventually we'll go through some of the models, and I'll go back and I'll show you that 6 to 10 day time frame as well. But looking at the GFS model and comparing this to what we had on our Tuesday, it's first of all very similar in track, basically due west, taking it through the Caribbean, bringing a lot of rain to the islands and then slamming it into Central America, somewhere near Nicaragua or Honduras early on Friday, and then it being about a 2.5 day rainfall event for portions of Central America, with the potential for some flooding in those areas, maybe some mudslides and higher terrain. And I really think that's the big impact potential, is some of the heavier rains that I'm seeing in Central America, potentially the southern sides of the Yucatan, but that's a little bit more into question here. So let's take it step by step, and we'll start with Central America. First of all, I want you to notice the time frame. As we get through our Friday, the 3rd, that's when we start to see whatever this is going to become beginning to work its way into the coastline of maybe as far south as Costa Rica, but especially up towards Nicaragua and Honduras, and then moving inland. Now, again, the winds could be fairly significant along the coastline, maybe not damaging, but again, we could have some low-end tropical storm force winds coming into those areas. But as it moves inland, the wind will fade away quickly, but the rain won't. Look at all of this heavy rain through our Sunday. Take a look at that. And again, I'll look at the totals for you in just a minute, but I want you to notice, especially for places like Managua and Tegucigalpa, as you head towards San Pedro Sula, and then up towards Belize City eventually. So again, other areas, El Salvador, the eastern sides of Guatemala, eventually Belize, and then into the Yucatan as we move into late weekend and early next week. But even by Sunday, we're just starting to see the showers move into places like Cancun and Cozumel. Now, other areas that are going to be impacted. I'll start off with our friends in Jamaica. You guys have had some good downpours on our Tuesday. For the remainder of Wednesday, it's going to be wet. That moisture access is slamming into the island. So a high-end chance for showers. Now, the heaviest rain will more than likely stay south of you, but you'll have a good chance for showers and downpours for Wednesday and Thursday, beginning to fade a bit on Friday and into the weekend. All right, as you go a little bit farther west towards the Cayman Islands, your rain chance again elevates for the remainder of this Wednesday, Thursday, and more of Friday. And the far northwest sides of the Caribbean could continue to see some heavily moisture-laden air and a better opportunity for showers. We've had some good rain over Hispaniola on Tuesday, and that will continue for Wednesday as well. For Santo Domingo, on over towards Port-au-Prince there in Haiti, just the entire island has a decent chance for some heavier downpours for one more day. Notice as we get into our Thursday, we begin to dry out on the 2nd, through Friday the 3rd, and then over the weekend, we're looking drier. Another area that got hammered on Tuesday with some heavy rain were portions of the ABC Islands. Not everyone, but we had some good rains for Aruba and Curacao and Bonaire. And if you notice, the moisture is actually even more prevalent, even more available south of the center of circulation. So the ABC Islands are going to see a lot more rain for the remainder of this Wednesday into Thursday. That's the 2nd. And really still some good rain possible on Friday before we finally begin to dry out over the weekend. So I hope you understand here the amount of rain that is going to be moving through the Caribbean over the next 3 to 5 days. It's going to be very significant in some areas and really potentially high end as we get into Central America. So let's take a look at it. This is going to be the GFS model rainfall totals over the next 5 days. And just look at this swath that this disturbance is going to move through the Caribbean and into Central America. And we'll take a look at some of those rainfall totals. I will start in Central America. Again, they could be extremely, extremely significant here. So we're going to take a look. I'm going to query some of these areas here. Just need to move the model back to the end of the time frame. And here you go. So again, as we go towards Tegucigalpa and Managua, inland cities, 5-6 inches of rain. But again, higher terrain, mudslides in some of these areas of Honduras and Nicaragua are possible. As you get to the coastline, take a look at this. 9, 10, 11 plus inches of rain on the GFS model. As you get to San Pedro Sula, by the way, here, let me just move this over. This is 14 inches of rain. And on this legend, that's peak. It doesn't even go above 14 inches over the next 5 days. This would be incredible rainfall. I hope we don't get the higher end numbers with this, but it's possible. I mean, it's absolutely possible here with all the moisture that'll be moving into Central America. So again, just painting on some of those numbers so you get an idea of what we're looking at here. And again, this is just over the next 5 days. As we get into Sunday is really when the heavier rain would start to move towards Belize City. So we'll look more at Belize and the Yucatan coming up here in the 6 to 10 day time frame, but it's not like that's the total amount you're going to see in Belize on the GFS model. As we get beyond 5 days, it's going to be even more. So you get the idea that there could be some very extensive flooding if these numbers were to hold true in some areas of Central America. So extremely, extremely concerned about that. Now looking at some other areas of the Caribbean, we'll go back to our friends in Jamaica right now. And again, it's not as significant. I mentioned that your moisture is not as prevalent, or the atmosphere is just not as water loaded up in Jamaica, generally the farther north that you go, but still you're looking at good 2 to 3 inches of rain on the eastern side of the island, maybe lower amounts towards Montego Bay and Negril, but even just off the eastern shoreline there, just east of Port Antonio, you've got over 5 inches of rain on the GFS model. So what I would say is locally for Jamaica over the next couple days, it's 2 to 3 inches with locally higher amounts. We'll start to see that rain kind of move away from Hispaniola. So although we'll see some downpours for Santo Domingo and trying to get some rain even towards the coast and Port-au-Prince, but certainly the higher elevations of Hispaniola, the rainfall totals, again, aren't going to be as high. Now, back to the ABC Islands. Again, heavy rain the next couple of days. I'm just going to paint on a couple of numbers here for you, and you can kind of get some averages, and they're all going to be somewhere around 3 to 4 inches, and you get north of there and look at some of these even higher totals. So for the ABC Islands, look for locally heavy rain, the downpours to continue through Friday, and then beginning to dissipate a little bit after that. But again, very significant rain in the islands. Let's move over to the wind, because you notice I have spent a lot of time on the rain. And the reason why, when I zoom back out is, and you look at this GFS model, the track is very similar to the last 12 to 24 hours, but it's weakened it a little bit as well. So that's why I'm not as concerned about a wind event or a higher end wind event. Now, the GFS model basically says if this is going to wrap up and become potentially maybe a tropical storm, maybe we get vents, it would be just before landfall there as it moves into Nicaragua, and that is going to be on Saturday, maybe Friday late, early on Saturday in that time frame. But again, you know, you're looking for those reds, those wind gusts of over 40 knots near the center, and we're barely seeing that. So on the GFS model, it would be a tropical depression, maybe a very weak tropical depression, a very weak tropical storm. But notice how quickly the wind field evaporates. As it moves into that higher terrain, the winds are gone, and this just becomes the rainmaker that I was mentioning. Again, higher elevations, a lot of rough terrain to rip apart that storm in a hurry. All right, so that's what it looks like there on the GFS model. Let's look at a couple different things. I do want to show you the overall track consensus of the GFS model, and that's the black line. You notice how, again, it actually drops slightly south of west. It actually drops in latitude a little bit there, but then as it gets into Central America, moving through Nicaragua and Honduras, it will begin to gain latitude and move up to the north. And again, could impact places like El Salvador, and especially the eastern sides of Guatemala, Belize, and eventually into the Yucatan of Mexico. Now, the European model, I've shown you this one before. This is a snapshot of Friday night. And the reason why I took a snapshot of this for this time frame is I want you to see how good an agreement the GFS and the European model are. It's the same time frame just east of Nicaragua there, Costa Rica and Honduras. Friday night, both of them have it just offshore, and both of them have this as being either a tropical depression or a very weak tropical storm. When you have pressure plots, lowest minimum pressure around 1,005, 1,006 millibars, that teeters on that depression, very weak tropical storm strength, and nothing in the European model is really stronger than that, okay? So again, good news as far as that goes, trying to keep the wind threat out of this disturbance out of the way, and we focus on the rain threat, again, for portions of the Caribbean, but especially into Central America as well. Want to also show you the NAM model. We'll take a look at that just, you know, again, to give you all the available tools that I have here and some of the things that I rely on as I look. We'll swing this out here, and again, this will zoom and loop into motion here, I'm hoping quite shortly. Let me, here we go. Now I know why, hit the wrong button. That's okay. Let me get it back out and extend it in time. Then I'll put this in the motion and this will jump on. So what does the NAM model show you? And again, this is now, we're looking at a third model. It's very similar. It might be slightly north of where the GFS was, but again, there's nothing extremely wrapped up in this. We see a little bit more of a twist, and we can take a look at the wind profile of the NAM model as well. I think that'll probably be the most interesting part of the NAM model, and we'll let that load up here. But again, you're gonna see a little bit broader wind field on the NAM model, but you're not going to see, again, core winds indicative of anything more than what would be a very weak tropical storm. More than likely, we would just see some tropical depression winds out of this as well. Again, it's trying to pick it up there. It looks like we lose the model here for some reason towards the first, but I've looked at it. I can promise you it's nothing more than what would be the GFS showing you. So speaking of the GFS, let's get back to that model. Let me go back to the reflectivity, and then again, I'm going to take this and then I'm going to extend it out. I don't even really need to extend it out all 10 days. Let's take it out 8 days, because I think that will serve our purpose for us here, and then we'll throw this into motion. So we're looking at the GFS model. I want to make sure I get the high resolution one as well. So bear me 1 second here while I make sure I have the best data available for you guys. There we go. Okay, correct model, correct time frame. Let's let it run. So now what we're really focusing on with this one here, and actually, you know what, I think it's a really cool thing. What I'll do is I'm going to take the start time and I'm just going to go ahead and bring it to the 5th, and then that way we can really just focus on the time frame that I mentioned. All right, so now you're looking at the time frame of the 5th through the 8th. So we basically picked up the model once it's moved inland into Central America, and it does bring that moisture back into the Yucatan, the western sides of Cuba, and eventually towards the southern sides of the Gulf of Mexico. It's not organized by any means. It's kind of just a broad area of showers. So for those who might be going to the Yucatan over the weekend, let's break this down for you here. Going to back it back up. I would expect to see some rain entering the Yucatan on Sunday, and then some better rain chances maybe Monday into Tuesday now. But again, we're not seeing crazy significant rain here, even through the 8th, as the model kind of pulls that rain back off towards the east. There does look to be some forward speed continuing here. It doesn't look like, at least over the Yucatan, I would expect that the moisture is going to be sitting around. If I do take it out as far as the 10th, what you're going to notice is almost kind of a loop-de-loop, which is why I mentioned the Cayman Islands, an area that might actually see more rain as that moisture comes back off of the Yucatan and kind of sits over the northwest sides of the Caribbean. But again, progressive, meaning that it's not going to be days and days and days of rain in the Yucatan for Cancun and Cozumel. But again, at least a few days where the rain chances will be relatively high. Now, if I switch over again to the total precipitation product, and this is going to be again for that time frame, not over the next 10 days, but starting from day 6 to day 10, then we can take a look at again what could be significant rain just off the coast. And more than likely what the GFS model is actually picking up on is just the fact that there's so much moisture as the coastline interacts and that rain moves on. Again, it would be very hard to say that just a few miles inland from Cancun, you're gonna have 2 inches of rain, and then just offshore, you're gonna have 6. More than likely, we will have a little bit heavier downpours along the coast, but I think this is really picking up on just the fact that it's over water and there's still all that moisture available. I don't think we're gonna have that significant of a cutoff between the coastline and what happens inland. But again, several inches of rain possible, it's out there. More than likely 2 to 3 inches of rain overall, a couple of wet days and then drying out by mid next week. I think that's the most likely scenario for the Yucatan. But again, friends, when I zoom this out, this is just some really, really heavy rainfall that I expect to continue here. And that, I think, is going to be the big story out of this disturbance. So again, one more time, 60% chance of development. Again, don't think it's going to be high-end wind maker, but a big rain maker for some Caribbean islands. And we'll really have to monitor the flood threat for portions of Central America beginning on Friday through the weekend ahead. Thank you so much, friends, for clicking that like button. And again, if you want the latest forecast to keep updated on this disturbance, and then for the future forecast videos across the entire Caribbean and the Bahamas, make sure you subscribe right here to Meteo Mundo. Also, remember, we're live streaming this system here. Just look for that in the live tab that's basically running 24/7. You want the up-to-date satellite and radar information and these tropical tracks to go along with current real-time temperatures in your area. Again, look for our live stream. Thanks, friends. We'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.